welcome to the MessianTics Podcast, a podcast about all things Messianic Judaism. Each episode, we will be sharing our opinions as we tackle some of the biggest issues in Messianic Judaism. Now, here's your hosts, Rabbis Eric, David, Jonathan, and Toby. Hey guys, thanks for joining us today as we come into another episode of the MessianTics Podcast. We're excited that you're here with us. Things are a little bit different today as Rabbi Eric is not on the show with us. I was going to say as Rabbi Eric's not with us, and that felt wrong. I knew we were going to get questions if I left that way, so I had to self-edit, and then my ADD ran with it. But Rabbi Eric's not here today.
He's on the high seas.
Yeah, he's on the high seas on Brit Am's intercongregational cruise that they orchestrate every year. And so Rabbi Toby, Rabbi Jonathan, and myself, Rabbi David, decided to go ahead and have record some episodes anyways without him. And so here is where we are. And this is also going to be a little bit different because we're not approaching any specific topic in this episode per se, as much as the three of us are just going to kick back and have a conversation organically and just kind of see where it goes. So with that said, I'm just going to kind of open up the floor and let you guys have at it, and we'll see where it goes.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah. So where are you right now in regards to your house? I know we've been traveling a lot the past month.
And with regards to the process?
Have you stripped anything else out?
Yeah.
Do we need to give some context?
I'm not talking about me stripping, bro. That's weird. No. So, yeah.
Have you added anything?
Rabbi Toby asked for context for those that may not know. So, my wife and I sold what in essence was my wife's dream house. The first house we ever bought that we had for the last 6 years or so was in essence my wife's dream house. And we sold it recently, I guess maybe 3-4 months ago now, and because the market in our area was absolutely insane, the equity we had built up in it and the proceeds we would have gotten from the sale was going to be nuts. So we sold our house and we bought a house that is a complete gut job renovation. Literally got to rip everything out and kind of rebuild the entire interior and what have you. In the process of it, we get to kind of make it our own and do what we want with it. We got a little more property than we had, actually I guess about twice the size of the property that we had, and lowered some, we don't have a mortgage payment anymore because we were able to pay cash for it out of the proceeds of the sale and all this kind of stuff. So kind of setting ourselves up long term, but also getting to teach our kids some really cool stuff as we're working through the rebuild of the house and what have you. And so currently my wife and myself are two children, one of which is a teen, one of which is almost a teen, thinks he's a teen, and our three dogs, one of which is a Great Dane, are all staying in a camper on our property while we're working on renovating the house. And so that gives you some context there of the craziness that is our life at the Tokajer residence. But yeah, so where we are right now is we've gutted about, I guess, a little less than 2/3 of the house. We've got to, so it's a crawl space house. We've got to rip up all the subflooring and put all new subflooring down and such. And that's our next major phase, is starting to rip up subfloor and put new subfloor down and what have you. So we've gutted everything on the side of the house we're working on. We're doing it in 2 phases, about give or take 2/3 of the house we're working on right now, leaving the living room, master bedroom, master bathroom as is right now, so that we have the functioning bathroom in the house with a shower and everything that we can use, and then the living room's kind of storage at the moment while we're working on all the rest of the house. And we finish everything else, then we'll go in and rip out and gut the other part and redo it all. So right now we've gutted everything out. Like a significant portion, about half of the house is literally just one giant open space. We ripped out all the interior walls and all this kind of stuff, and we're getting ready to start working on subflooring, and we're going to raise the ceiling on part of that side of the house and make it feel a little more roomy and stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of where we are. It was 5-bedroom, 2.5 bath. By the time we're done, it'll be 4-bedroom, 3 full bath.
Okay.
We got rid of 1 bedroom to expand the kitchen and build a nice pantry.
Yeah. Currently, it's just one room.
Currently, it is 3 rooms if you count 4 rooms because there's 1 bedroom that is
still enclosed.
It's gutted, but it's kind of still its thing.
Okay.
And then the other half of the house is just completely open space.
Yeah.
And then the living room master bedroom, master bathroom. But when it's all said and done, it'd be cool. So we're figuring our estimates right now are maybe 8 months to a year that we'll live in the camper working on the house. I'd like to see that go a little faster, but I also really don't want to cut corners. I want to kind of do it right the first time, because this potentially could be a house we live in for years to come, and so we want to do it right and make it ours and what have you,
and not die from electrocution,
which has almost happened a couple of times.
Be careful
that was
with doing
fun.
that. With are you licensed in electric work, or are you going to have someone? Okay,
I've got friends that are helping with some of
that. We were tearing part of the bathroom out, and David had these gloves on, and I'm
Toby saw my reckless abandonment in general.
Right. And I have my back to him, and I'm trying to tear out this piece of 70s paneling.
Yeah.
And he is fiddling with this receptacle, and I hear this pop. It all happens, everything, sometimes when things happen so fast, but then when you look back, you have to recount the details.
Yeah. You were watching it. You were just...
This all happened at the same... Listen,
it was all in slow-mo.
This all happened at the same time. It was like the Matrix. It all happened at the same time, but it all seemed like it all seemed like it happened so slow. But my back is to David, and I hear this pop and a flash that's so loud, that's so bright, that I can see it out of the corner of my left eye, and I turn around, and David is shaking his hand, and it's smoking and sparking, and
for everyone listening, it's gloved.
His hand's gloved. Yeah. No, now, and this is just me, and this is funny. My first reaction was I grabbed David's shoulder and I said, "Are you okay?" I thought, this is it, And David goes, "Yeah, my glove bought it though. My glove's gone." And then we kept working and stuff. And then this is what's funny. It took us 10 or 15 minutes to process what happened, because David was like, "Hey, I almost died. If I wasn't wearing this glove, no, seriously, it would have been a trip to the hospital."
Yeah, definitely. There were a pair of Carhartt work gloves that I had just bought a week before, and when I bought them, I was like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and get these. They were, I want to say it was $20, and I was like, it is what it is. But now, legitimately, the best $20 I've ever spent.
Yeah.
No,
save your hand.
And I'm like, and I just remember in that moment thinking, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah.
We don't...
I legitimately
don't know what we're doing.
I honestly, I know buildings get built, and, we build impressive structures and homes and all the time. But honestly, I've worked in construction where I'm not sure how anything gets done.
No, I don't know.
I was putting in cabinets, all the medical cabinets for this children's pediatric clinic years ago. I was with the company I was with, and we walked in one day, and the electricians were at work putting in all the wiring that goes through all the different alarms and communication tools and fiber optics and things like that, all on the roof. There's just wires everywhere.
No, yeah,
and everyone's walking around just
no.
I'm like, man,
I'm good.
Someone's gonna. And then someone, I do remember one time someone forgot to mark where they put a pipe, and they put it in the wrong place. It was not in where it should have been. Where, according to how the studs were built up in this wall, and so one of my guys was one of my coworkers was putting in a above toilet cabinet in an office, and he hit that dead center of that pipe, and that water just and so
And what was funny was I said, "David, did that shock you?" And David said, "No, I'm good. It just got the glove." And 10 or 15 minutes later, in the time it took for us to say, "Okay, you almost died," in the time in that 10 or 15 minutes when we finally started to realize what happened, David goes, "Okay, my left arm is a little numb." And I said, "Are you okay?" He goes, "Yeah, fine."
So for those that are listening, we not only are we mixing up the show a little bit, and we're Sen's Rabbi Eric, but if you hear random noises behind us, we're actually hanging out outside at Bridom in Pensacola, Florida, which is where Rabbi Eric and Rabbi Jonathan lead the congregation. But we're sitting outside doing the recording today because it's just a really nice day here in sort of and Florida's mullet, I guess we can call it.
Yeah, that's accurate.
The panhandle of Florida's mullet. And it's a beautiful day out. I mean, crystal clear blue skies. But the Bridam is kind of under the flight path of the regional airport here. So you may hear airplanes fly over us from time to time. Just count it as a new variety of ambiance to the recording. So
what's that term for all the sounds people play online now that they'll listen to? It's like not white
ASMR.
Noise. Yeah, there we go. It's the new ASMR. MessianTics ASMR.
There is something to that. I go to I'm like Bob Ross. I listen to Bob Ross, who was doing, I guess you could say, ASMR before it was even a thing.
Sure,
it was a happy little accident when he.
Yeah, but the sound of his of the paintbrush and like the knife he uses and stuff, like that puts me right to sleep when I have trouble. And he's just so comforting the way he talks and stuff. Everything's going to be okay.
Yeah,
so that's like a thing.
Funny.
No, I mean it like I'm very sensory like that. So
yeah.
So we've all just kind of come through a pretty busy period of time for us as we had the High Holy Days kind of rolling almost right into obviously the High Holy Days rolling into the Thanksgiving and holiday season of Hanukkah and Christmas and everything that everybody's real involved with that, and then we immediately roll right into the Messianic Jewish Alliance of America's Southeast Regional Conference in Orlando, and then I think it was almost 3 weeks, a little less than 3 weeks later, we were all just down in Orlando again for the International Alliance of Messianic Congregations and Synagogues, the IAMCS, for their annual rabbis conference. And for those that may not be familiar, in the Messianic Jewish movement, there are two major rabbinic / congregational organizations. There are a few out there besides these, but there are two primary organizations that are congregational and rabbinical organizations. And one is the International Alliance of Messianic Congregations and Synagogues. The other is the Union of Messianic Jewish Congregations. And so Rabbi Eric and I both carry our smicha, or our ordination as Messianic Jewish rabbis, through the IAMCS. Rabbi Toby and Rabbi Jonathan both were just inducted into the ordination process with the IAMCS at this last rabbis conference. So mazel tov, guys, on getting to where you are now, and there's a few years ahead of you of process and training and classes and mentorship and so on that goes into this. So I'm looking forward to the next few years where we get to rejoice in your getting full ordination and finishing the smicha process and everything. And then Congregation Maim Chaim is also a part of the UMJC as well. Bridam was. Now there are a few other organizations such as Tikkun and things like that, but these are the two major major players, if you would. So we just came back from actually we just all got back last Thursday from the IMCS Rabbis Conference in Orlando, and then about 3 weeks before that was the MJA, Messianic Jewish Alliance of America Southeast Regional Conference in Orlando, both at the same hotel, which means you don't really have to learn anything new. It's easy to get there, easy to find. Been doing this for a better part of 3 decades, going to these conferences at the same hotel, so it's like second nature to me at this point. But I wanted to ask you guys, like, between the two conferences, maybe a takeaway from both. Between the two conferences, what was your biggest takeaway from these last two conferences? Obviously, the Rabbis Conference, there's some stuff that's kind of more confidential that we really can't expound upon for just a general audience. But nonetheless, what were your two biggest takeaways? What did the Lord speak most to you guys on from those two conferences?
At the Southeast, I was with Rabbi David backstage, helping out as a stagehand, which is always fun. And if you've ever seen my face, you know why they take me backstage. Yeah.
And
which I have to say, have to take a minute to,
not a minute,
but I have to take a moment to say it's so important to be able to, it's just as important to be able to help backstage as it is to be on the main stage. Rabbi David actually had some time on both, and but it's good to see Rabbi David's example as someone who leads a congregation, and also gets on the main stage, but then goes in the back and gets his hands dirty with everybody and works backstage. So that whole experience in itself was good. But honestly, it was getting to carry the Torah during the Torah processional, which was really, really a great honor.
Can I set that up for you for
Absolutely.
a second? So I just want to paint this picture for those that maybe aren't familiar with this particular conference. One of the unique things about the Southeast region is that, for the most part, it is planned, organized, and volunteer ran by the Southeast regional rabbis and our congregations and all, which is a really neat, unique dynamic to it. But one of the things that really stands out is that every year the rabbis bring their Torah scrolls from their congregations to the conference. And so, typically speaking, the last couple of years have been a little down because of COVID and everything going on there. Traveling was a little different. But for the most part, for most of my life going to this conference, there are usually anywhere from 10 to 15 or more Torah scrolls in the procession on Shabbat morning.
It's really beautiful to see.
And so this year was the first year in a couple where we had, I think there were 13 Torah scrolls that were in the procession. And so Rabbi Toby carried the Torah scroll from CMC.
So it was just an incredibly surreal and just an amazing moment. And I think that for anyone who has an opportunity to carry the Torah in a processional, I think it's one of the greatest honors,
Yeah.
And I hope it always feels like the first time for me. But the funny thing that happened was a particular rabbi was supposed to kind of lead the processional. And so, because what happens is, the worship band's playing music. You got a bunch of people in there. How many people were in there, David? Like 800?
I think it was almost 900 this
almost
year.
900. So I come out, and it's really overwhelming when you see all those people. And I have the Torah along with these 12 other, 11 or 12 other rabbis, and Rabbi Michael Stepikoff of Temple New Jerusalem. He's kind of like, he's the guy that I'm looking to be like, okay, tell me where I need to go.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, well, you're going to go down that aisle right there. And this one rabbi just kind of takes off in a different direction. And Michael Stepikoff taps me on the shoulder, Rabbi Stepikoff, and goes, point. And he points. So I just go, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm just going to go.
Yeah.
And so many things happen. One of the most beautiful things about carrying the Torah is seeing people reach to touch the Torah. And for me, it's almost like symbolic of how much we need God and how beautiful it is to see people desire God. And it reminds me of like Yeshua walking the streets of Jerusalem, and people just want to touch his garment,
And for those that may not be familiar with, and I don't mean to cut you off, but for those that may not be familiar with what he means by reaching out and touching the Torah scroll, is in the procession, one of the things that happen, well, there's two major things that happen. One is that everybody in the congregation will turn in place and follow the scroll around the sanctuary with their eyes all the way around, because we never want to turn our back on the Word of God. And as believers, as a Messianic Jewish community, for us even more so, we never want to turn our backs not only on the Word of God, but we never want to turn our backs on the Word made flesh, on Yeshua, right? So there's this Messianic symbolism that goes into it and such as well. But the other thing is that you will see people reach out with their talit or their Bible, their prayer books, whatever it is, to touch the mantle, the garment on the Torah scroll, and then they'll bring that item or their hand, whatever it is, back to their face, and they'll kiss that item. And on the outside, it may look weird, or it may look idolatrous, or it may look whatever, and it's not. It's actually an interaction with David's words. I think it's in Psalm 119, where he says, your word is like honey, like a sweetness upon my lips. And so it's an interaction with that reality, and so we're welcoming in the sweetness of the Word of God into our hearts and our lives, and interacting with it and doing that. And then again, as Messianic believers, there's this even greater Messianic implication as we're welcoming the sweetness of the Word made flesh. Go ahead, Toby.
No, and so I go down the aisle that Rabbi Stepikoff directs me to go down, so I'm going down it, and I'm thinking I'm alone, like there's nobody behind me. And as I'm going through, I'm trying to give everybody an opportunity to touch the Torah, because people are trying to get to it. And there was this lady, she was at the end of the aisle, and she touches the Torah, and I can see behind her this woman coming like full speed. I mean, she's coming in hot towards the Torah, and she arm bars this unsuspecting woman standing at the end of the aisle, and she reaches and just bow, like puts her hand on the Torah and kisses it, and thank you,
coming through like Big Daddy Don Garlic.
And that's right. She was probably harder than him. Yeah.
Things will never die.
So I look, and that's when I get a tap on my shoulder, and I look back, and it's Rabbi Michael. He's behind me, and he goes, keep going. So apparently, because
somehow you became the point man.
Somehow I became the point Torah, the point man,
background context for that joke about Don Garlitz.
Big Daddy Don Garlitz.
Big Daddy Don Garlitz. There's on the way down to
Orlando, to the Rosen.
Yep, there's a museum off the side of it's 75, which we had an argument about at Rosen, which was kind of funny. This is not on 75. Yes, it is. But it's right off the side, and it doesn't look like much. It's just like
it looks like a building, like a little.
It looks
house.
like a little like a hangar almost.
Yeah,
and
but on the side of it.
Yeah, on the side of it, it's Big Daddy Don Garlitz's drag racing museum.
Big Daddy Don Garlitz,
and he is the evidently the founder of what we know as drag racing.
Right.
And he was the first one to really install the engines behind the driver, so it wasn't.
We read all this about Don Garlitz because we saw his name on this museum. So we have learned all this about Big Daddy Don Garlitz, and it became me and Jonathan especially the inside joke we will never let die. And now everything we
now you're all in on it.
Yeah, that's right. So all of our inside jokes. So Phil, if you see us at conferences and things, feel free to come up and.
So then we get after I make it through the crowd of people, because Rabbi Stepakov's like, you got to keep going, Toby. I know people want to touch it, but you got to keep going, and so we get down in front of the big audience, the congregation again, and that's when the massive amount of dancers are surrounding the Torah, and that is so messianic to me.
Yeah.
Not to take a really theological term, because I just have this vision, of when Yeshua comes back and he fights for Israel and saves Israel. He's not just gonna do that and then go up on some mountain. He's gonna dance among his people, and they're gonna dance around him, and not only the people of Israel, but the nations are gonna come. And just seeing, Jew and Gentile one in Messiah, dancing around the Word of God, and it's just a beautiful moment. So that was my highlight from the Southeast, and just really quick from the Rabbis Conference. Obviously, it was going up front with my wife and receiving the certificate and having hands laid on me by Rabbi David, who is discipling me and who I greatly respect, and also just other great forerunners of the movement, Rabbi Lieberman and Rabbi Chernoff and Rabbi Foreman, coming and laying their hands and just know and being a part of the generation that they get to look and see, okay, God's raising other men and women up to carry this thing on, and being a part of that was just very humbling. So
it was a good experience. I really enjoyed I always enjoy being in and engaging with and discussion. Everyone who comes to both conferences, but especially the Rabbis Conference, because there's so many people that I know and have been able to make friends with who live in different parts of the country that I keep in touch with throughout the year, and then we see each other and we get to hang out and talk and just spend time with each other, fellowshipping, worshiping, praying, and of course, several of them were welcomed into. Some of them were pursuing, my friend Mo Wolf was. They were awarded membership within the IMCS, their congregation, and a few others. A couple others were Toby was given a licensure, same as me, and so Catherine and I were very blessed to be able to, like Toby was saying, to be able to go up and receive that and be just prayed over by the many different rabbis that were.
That have worked so hard for decades to bring the movement where it's at,
and to kind of see, because we went for a short period of time. David went for a short period of time with me up to the millennial. They had a millennial gathering thing.
I missed that.
By millennial, they literally meant
because I spent just as much time as I spent in sessions and in classes. I spent in the pool with my children and so I was exhausted. I remember this gathering. I could barely move, so I just went up to the room and collapsed.
Yeah, which is understandable. And I just had made it a point to go because I'd gone the year before and had been one of the people who the year before had said, hey, you should do it earlier in the week, so I felt obligated to go because they actually moved it to having it earlier in the week, although it was at 9 at night, which, I might be on the next survey that comes down, I'll be like, maybe not so late because it was really late, but, it was easily, what do you think, 30, 40 people under the age of 50? I think
there was probably close to 40 people in there.
Which
they always pick the smallest suite to do it in.
I know.
Oh yeah, sure.
But
claustrophobic.
And but all of these Messianic young leaders, both Jew and Gentile, both who are already leading congregations, who are being trained up to lead congregations, who sit on boards in congregations, who are kind of being stationed to take over when the senior leader steps down. So it really did. It made me feel really warm inside. Like, okay, like this, our future is, assured by the fact that God has brought these people together. He's brought these kids, and there were more. Like,
I also want to
that weren't there.
I also want to mention Rabbi Eric Carlson as someone who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and it's just good to see him. And he gave such a great word. That was another highlight. Was the word he gave. So that's
I really appreciate his talk about the idea of time being sacred. And I know that wasn't the only thing he talked about, but that was one of the things that stood out to me the most, was that using our time wisely, and not just in our personal lives as with our families, but also as leaders when we're handling the business of running a congregation.
And he's at Newport News. He's Congregation Zion's Sake, by the way.
Yep. Yeah, and their worship leader, Joshua Pearsall.
Yeah,
they led worship
for part of it. Yeah,
for part of it. And
they're tight. They're really
tight
good band,
group.
Really good.
But and Carlson's actually going to be speaking at the Messianic Men's Conference.
Oh, that's great.
Here at Bradam. So
that's awesome.
Shameless plug. If you haven't already, go to our website or our Facebook. Find a link to the Messianic Men's Conference for this year. It's in April 21st to 23rd. If you sign up before the end of January, I think it's like $65. The price goes up after that, so sign up before the end of the month.
Right.
And it'll definitely be worth it. And look, there's not we see Messianic women's retreats and conferences. We see all these different things going on. There's not a lot specifically for men in the Messianic.
Not to cut you off, but I just want to say the statistics for just in general synagogue/church, just in general body of believers, is that women are mostly. I mean, I think it's mostly attended by women churches and synagogues.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, and that is wonderful. I'm just saying, obviously, I think the enemy is pushing back on men.
Yeah. So I highly encourage you to check it out and come to Pensacola to the men's conference, Messianic Men's Conference. This is the 5th year.
I think so.
I think it's 5th year that Bradam's put this on, and if you're able to, definitely go to it, check it out. It's on Bradam's website, shalompensacola.com. You guys are .com, right? shalompensacola.com.
Yeah.
Or you can go to search Bradam on Facebook and find the info there or what have you. You may even be able to just Google Messianic Men's Conference.
Yeah, and if you're on Facebook, like Messianic Men's Conference, just search Messianic Men's Conference. We have our Facebook page, and the link is on there on the About section, so you can go there and sign up.
I know Rabbi David's highlight from the Southeast was when his glasses popped out during his message.
That was absolutely nuts. So I was up speaking
and he kept going.
Yeah, I was up speaking on main stage on Saturday night of the conference, and about halfway through my message, my left side of my eyeglasses, the frame snaps and my lens goes flying across the stage.
And you didn't touch your glasses, right?
Nah, it was weird. It was just completely out of the blue.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, but it all worked out. It was all good. I mean, I was half blind the rest of the way through my message, so trying to read my iPad with the lights on my face and all was a little weird, but it is what it is.
I have to say, those lights, like when we got up there to give the certificate, those lights are really hot.
Yes.
Like I'm almost like, man, I don't know if I want to be up here.
I was kind of, you were kind of more in the center. I was kind of off to the side. And
those lights are really hot.
So I also got to spend some time with Rabbi Jan Rosenberg from Jersey, and I spent a good hour and a half just catching up with him.
Yeah, Rabbi Jan leads Beth Zion Messianic Synagogue in New Jersey,
and his wonderful wife Marlene, and got to see them. So just wanted
y'all have known each other for a while, haven't y'all?
We have, yeah. He's like a spiritual granddad, Anyway, so love the Rosenbergs, but just got to spend some time with Rabbi Jan. So.
Rosenberg's at the Rosen.
Yeah.
So for me, I think as far as like the Southeast Regional goes, the number one takeaway that I always get from going to the Southeast, and the same thing at Messiah Conference and the Union Summer Conference and so on, is there. It's one thing to be in your own local congregation and to interact, and you see the same faces every week, and that's always encouraging and exciting to get together in unity and worship. But there's something about the opportunity to get together on a grander scale A lot of times Messianic congregations tend to be more regional than they are local, right? You don't have, your average attendee at a Messianic synagogue drives upwards of an hour to get to service every week, and what have you. So it's not like Baptist churches where you've got one on every street corner or what have you. It's a little bit of a different environment, and so when you go to these conferences, it's a really awesome opportunity to gather together with the greater Messianic community and worship, but also to be reminded that we're not the only one. This really is a greater community that we get to participate in, interact with, build relationships with. Yeah. So that's always my biggest takeaway from the Southeast. Every year I'm encouraged by that reality of getting to get together like that on a grander scale. The Rabbis Conference, as somebody, you guys listening to the podcast have heard our stories and heard us talk about it over the number of episodes, however many, I don't remember what number we're on now, but however many episodes we've done now, you've heard us talk about our own individual stories and all. And for me, I'm a second-generation Messianic rabbi, second-generation Messianic Jew. I've grown up in the Messianic movement. I've been going to the IMCS Rabbis Conference as a rabbi's kid. I went to it for 4 or 5 years before I actually got into congregational ministry, but I think I was 19 or 20 the first time I went in a congregational ministry role as a part of the Rabbis Conference and actually attending the conference for that purpose.
Yeah. Has the conference changed much over the past?
Yes and no. Yes and no. Some of the formatting has changed a little bit and things like that, but not. I mean, not really. Not in a tremendous amount.
Okay.
But I've been going for I guess almost 20 years now.
Yeah.
That I've been going to the Rabbis Conference, and the last 2 years have been. I don't mean this as like an onslaught on all of the previous years that I've gone to. If you're listening and you're a Messianic rabbi, especially if you're on the steering committee planning the IMCS conference, Rabbis Conference, please don't take this in a negative light. But I think in unlike the many years before, the last 2 years have been probably the most encouraging conferences that I've been to, because it's also been the two conferences that I've seen the highest concentration of younger leaders. Represented at the conference.
Yeah, they even mentioned that when they called up the people for the induction. They said
there were probably at least 40 to 50 people that were under and look, in the Messianic movement, when we say younger, we're really saying under 50.
Eduardo Rabbi Arroyo, he actually got his full ordination.
Yeah, got his full ordination. Who is a good friend of ours.
Mazel tov to Rabbi Eduardo.
Yeah, he's the associate rabbi at Beth El Gibor in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, under Rabbi Mark Schulman, the senior rabbi there. He has the YouTube channel Radar Apologetics. If you get a chance, go listen to it. Messianic Apologetics, debates Orthodox Jews and such, quite a bit about Mashiach and what have you.
Very brave and intense.
It's a great resource. Go check it out. Radar Apologetics. But Rabbi Eduardo got his full ordination, his full smicha at the conference this year. Who he's also one of the younger. I think he's about my age. One of the younger leaders. He may be a few years younger than I am. But either way, getting to see 40s and under younger leaders in a larger number there. I mean, it's just, as a guy that's grown up in this, that's had a passion and a burden for raising up young leaders, raising up a future for the Messianic Jewish movement. This has, and anybody that's talked to me any length of time can tell pretty quick that that's a huge passion of mine. And so it's a big thing for me to see this coming around, having been that guy in a lot of regards, one of just a handful of people for the last 20 years, and now that group has grown dramatically. Is a really encouraging reality for kind of where we're going.
A shift in the heavenlies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I believe fervently that our B'nai Mitzvot, our Bar Bat Mitzvah Parsha, speaks directly into the Lord's calling for our life. And I encourage you to go look up, if you didn't have a bar bat mitzvah, go look up what your parsha would have been had you had one, and take the time to sit down and pray about it and contemplate it and see what it is. For me, I kind of lucked out because I have one of the shortest Torah parshot as my bar mitzvah parsha, but my bar mitzvah parsha was Deuteronomy 31 and Hosea 14, and Deuteronomy 31 is Joshua, the next generation of leadership of God's people, stepping up and taking leadership of the nation of Israel, preparing to lead them in the Promised Land, the mantle being moved from Moses to Joshua, and then Hosea 14, Hosea 14:2 was what begins the actual Parsha, my Haftarah Parsha, but Hosea 14:2 begins with the words, "Return, O Israel, to the Lord your God," and it's this whole idea of returning to Him in teshuvah and repentance and crying out, look, we know we messed up, but your arms are open. We want to come back to you. And I fervently believe that a major part of my calling is not just to be a part of the next generation of Messianic rabbis stepping up to take the mantle of leadership of our movement and leading our people in the promises of God, but I believe a big part of that is also in being a part of raising up next generations and generations after that of Messianic Jewish leadership. So being at the Rabbis Conference and getting to kind of see those pieces all come together and seeing there being more and more like next generation, future generation, current generation, whatever you want to call it, now generation. Everybody likes to throw around different terms. Whatever it is, younger leaders stepping up and answering that call and walking is just a super encouraging thing for me, having grown up in this and gone through some of the things I've gone through to get where I am now.
Awesome. Mine is Shoftim.
Shoftim?
Yeah, justice shall you pursue.
Mine's Parsha Bo, which is funny because, growing up, we would always watch the Charlton Heston's The Ten Commandments. And
I thought you were going to say when he reads the Bible. He did this whole video series where he goes to different parts of the Holy Land and he reads,
oh, wow, no,
come to me, all you who are...
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, look, it's Charlton Heston. He can do no wrong at this point.
He's kind of like the Morgan Freeman voice of the 50s and 60s.
If you haven't, you got to go listen to the James Earl Jones reads the KJV Bible, the audio Bible, the KJV as read by James Earl Jones. It's Darth Vader reading the Bible. You can't go wrong.
No. But no, I just, when I think of Charlton Heston, I think of that, and I think of the Ten Commandments. How could you not? But also when he just did his Bible video series. But go ahead.
Oh, yeah, so growing up, we watched the Ten Commandments, and I remember I was like 8, and I asked my dad, just point blank, one day we were standing in the room, he was getting some stuff out of his wardrobe. I was like, Dad, if God told you to put blood on the doorposts of our house to protect me, would you have? I was like, would you have obeyed God, Dad?
That's so funny. That's like prophetic almost.
That's when I found out years later that my birth parsha was Bo, I was like, oh my goodness.
I have a story. Yeah, I have a story similar to that. I remember when I was a kid. I'm just going to be honest with you. I had quite a bit of moments where I just did not like going to church. I did not especially like going twice on Sunday, like in the morning and in the evening. And I remember
does that anymore. You're dating yourself, bro.
Because you would get up in the morning and you would go to church. And then we get home from lunch, and I wanted to just play Nintendo or go outside or whatever. And and next thing you know, it's like, hey, we're going back to church. I'm like, are you serious? And I remember one time I was in my room, and I remember I think it was prophetic because I remember it so clearly. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, and Mom goes, hey, you need to get ready for church. And I said, are you serious? And she goes, yeah, we're going back. It's the night service. And I said, what the heck, Mom? And I said, isn't Saturday the Sabbath anyway? What are we doing? And Mom goes, Toby, just get ready. And it's like I never forgot that moment. And God was just like, just wait. Don't worry. Just give me a few years. Yeah. I'll get you there.
So I think let
me get you to adulthood.
I think we all have stories like that. Mine's a little bit different. I mean, I have similar situation. Mine's a little bit different because
you were raised in it, right?
Yeah, for most of my life. Yeah, but when I was real little, like my mom was raised in a United Pentecostal church, UPC, and my dad became a believer in the same UPC church that she grew up in. So when I was real little, through I guess I was in 3rd grade, going into 4th grade when we got involved with Messianic Judaism, and before that, we had turned. My dad had planted this church in the middle of nowhere, Podunk, Alabama. Nobody ever came to it.
Oh, I didn't know your dad planted a church.
Yeah. This was when I was real little. I mean, nobody ever came to it. It never really became anything. By
the way, we're not knocking the church.
Correct. Yeah. But at some point, he felt the Lord say, "You're Jewish. Start acting like it."
Wow.
So we turned this. He said, "Well, I know what being a believer looks like. I know what being Jewish looks like. And we turned this little church in the middle of nowhere in Podunk, Alabama, into. And by the way, that's not a real city, but into
it's a number of cities.
Yeah, into in essence a Messianic Jewish synagogue, not knowing that Messianic Judaism existed. And
awesome.
So we started having Shabbat services and all this kind of stuff. And one of the guys in the congregation that came every once in a while was like, oh, there's this place like this in Mobile. You should go check it out. So we drove down to Mobile, and that was kind of the beginning of the end. And so for the next almost 2 years, we were driving back and forth to 2 hours one way to Mobile for services every Friday night for Erev Shabbat service. And then in that process, they asked my dad to become the rabbi there. And so, so then we made the move down to Mobile, and that was kind of where everything took off from. But before that, when I was in early elementary school, like I remember my dad, when my dad became a believer, as many Jewish believers go through, when my dad became a believer, my family disowned him. And I'll let him share his story on. I'm not going to go into all the detail on it, but his family disowned him and wanted really nothing to do with him in a lot of ways. And the church, he became a believer and told him, okay, now you're no longer Jewish, you're now a Christian. All that Jewish stuff doesn't matter. So instantly, what should have been the most important decision of his life, to make that decision, he lost everything. He lost his family. He lost his identity. He lost everything he ever knew. In order to follow Messiah. So when Yeshua says, you've got to be willing to give up everything to follow me, like, we know what that means and what that feels like in a very literal sense.
Yeah.
But my dad was really wounded by that when I was little. And so growing up, like, I remember I found my dad's, he had this little, like, velour wrapped box in a closet, like, hidden up in his closet somewhere. And it was actually a Kiddush cup box. And I found it and pull it out and open it up, and there's, like, his Kiddush cup from his bar mitzvah, and there's a mezuzah necklace that he used to wear when he was younger. And
it's like a scene from a movie.
Yeah, his Sidor's in it. I mean, all this kind of stuff's in it. And so I pulled this mezuzah necklace out, and I went to my dad, and I was like, oh, dude, look what I just found. This would be really cool. Can I wear this? Would it be? Now, what you don't know is, like, at that point in time, we were still, my dad was still very active in church. We were still in this church, and this particular flavor of Christianity, like, dudes didn't wear necklaces, so that was a big no-no by itself, much less the whole dichotomy of being Jewish believers and him wrestling with all of that and the issues that went through with that. But so he got mad at me for it, and I mean, like, rip me. We're not Jewish. We don't do that stuff. I mean, rip me. I'm just like, so why do you still have it? Like, if it's not important to you anymore, why do you still have it? But I remember getting in arguments with people in elementary school. I actually got detention one day for one of these arguments. But I got in an argument with somebody when I was in maybe second grade, third grade, something like that. Got in this argument with this girl. We had no clue Messianic Judaism existed. Like, no clue at all. My dad was still saying, we're not Jewish, we're Christians, none of that Jewish stuff is, whatever. And, but I never felt, my entire life, I never felt comfortable in the church. Not that I have any issues with the church, but I knew that wasn't my identity. I knew that wasn't where I was. I knew we were Jewish. I knew we were Jewish believers. I knew we were supposed to be in Judaism. And so when I was in second or third grade, I had arguments with people in school about how I could be Jewish and believe in Jesus. Now, we knew nothing about Messianic Judaism. This was not a conversation that had ever been broached in my household, much less one that I should have. But I was having these in-depth conversations, in essence, about Messianic Judaism, arguments with people about Messianic Judaism. And then, lo and behold, a year or two later, we get involved with Messianic Judaism, and that's the beginning of the rest of my life. And so, when I was in elementary schools, when we got involved with Messianic Judaism, but no clue that it existed previous to that. And here I am having these debates that now have become second nature, and this is very much a part of my identity, who I am, what I do.
Yeah, I have a question. What were you looking for to begin with in the closet? Because I just know, having dug through my parents' closets before, like, when I found stuff, that was never the thing I'd gone looking for.
I would always go through my dad's closet to get his referee shirt because it was black and white striped, and I would dress up like
just your thing.
I would dress up like Beetlejuice. I just would put the referee shirt on because I watched the Beetlejuice cartoon. After school every day.
To be honest, I really don't remember. I remember what I found.
Yeah, that impactful of a memory.
Yeah, but I don't remember why I was in the closet.
It's funny.
I mean, honestly, knowing me and my childhood, I was probably sent there to go get his belt because I did something stupid and had a spanking coming. I don't know.
Maybe that's why he was so angry. He came back Miguel. He's like, not only did he do something, but he didn't bring the bell back with him. Instead, he brought this necklace.
Now, I do want to say,
which I think he actually still wears them as a necklace.
He does.
Now,
He does.
the
Which
same
I
one,
think is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
You think my dad's beautiful? That's weird. Dude.
No.
But,
The fact that he wears a necklace after all that.
But the church is where I first encountered God. The church is where I first met the Messiah. And I just don't want to put off the indication or the perception that
we have anything negative,
or that God isn't moving through the church. He absolutely is. But like Rabbi David said, I can honestly say I never fully felt comfortable in the church for some reason, and now I know why.
Yeah.
And it was just a natural progression of God's move in my life, not the church is garbage, the church is trash, and absolutely not.
Well, for me,
it's where I encountered God, and it's where people are still encountering God.
Yeah. And it was the same for me.
Even though I have to say there is the fullness of the Word of God is missing in many aspects.
Oh yeah, sure.
Which is what I found in Messianic Judaism. So that's all.
And even in some Messianic circles, like if we're honest, there's times where it's like, okay, this is really lacking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I grew up. I was redeemed in the church, or more so just in my parents' household. Because I was very young. But grew up. I mean, the last church I was attending faithfully was a little Lutheran church, back where my parents still live in Alabama. And just wonderful, sweet, godly people. Couldn't ask. You really couldn't ask for better, especially nowadays. I mean, with some of the problems the church is having, you could not ask for better in a lot of cases.
Yeah,
but
I had a great pastor as a kid.
I remember kind of like late high school and kind of going off into college, and it was actually one of the reasons why I kind of stopped going to church for years while I was in college. When I was back home, like over breaks, I would go with my folks.
Oh, sure.
But I wasn't attending anything in the local area where I was going to school, and I remember feeling like, man, there's got to be more, like, because I was like, I could go on missions. I could go to mission trip. I even looked at attending a school for missionaries. My senior year of college, I was contemplating going west to this place in, I want to say like Nebraska or somewhere, out near some mountains, where they were like, we got a school for missionaries. You come out for like 6 months, we train you, and then it's supposed to be the church you're attending to is supposed to help support you, and then like you would go out supported by whomever. And, but I was like, I don't know, man. There's got to be more that I'm supposed to be doing. I feel like God wants
and that's the call.
Involved more, and then this was the time when I was heavily looking into like Eastern Orthodoxy, and because I had this brief obsession in college with Russia and Russian art, and Russian Orthodoxy is rife with that, and so and then of course God was like, no, not going down that way, and then I got introduced to just a handful of people who I wasn't even listening to the fact that they were Messianic or Torah pursuant or whatever you want to call it. I was listening to them for other things. Like they were known for other stuff, but they just happened to be either Messianic or Hebrew roots, whatever. And just slowly God drew me into where I was supposed to be. And then when I moved back home from college, I found the Messianic congregation that was nearby and started attending there faithfully. So
yeah, and that's a lot of our story. So
yeah. So this has been, I didn't realize we'd gone that long.
How long has it been?
How long have we gone?
45 minutes, which is, it's not bad,
okay.
but
no.
I didn't realize it was that long. So if you guys are good with that, I think we're going to wrap this episode up there. This was, again, like we said, just a little bit different we wanted to do. Rabbi Eric wasn't here, and so we thought we'd kind of mix things up a little bit and just have a kind of organic conversation. I think it was a phenomenal conversation.
It's good stuff.
And I hope it was a blessing to the audience as they listen to it.
Yeah, I think we should do more of these.
Yeah, definitely.
Just so y'all can get to know us as
a little more,
just who we are,
which may be frightening. I mean, you get inside my brain enough, and you might have nightmares for a while. But So thanks for joining us today. We hope this has been a blessing, and we'll see you guys next episode.
Shalom.
Thank you for listening to the MessianTics Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you can be notified every time we drop a new episode. And be sure to follow and interact with us on social media at MessianTics Podcast.